Let me tell you this story, friend, because it's so wild you'll think I'm making it up. It starts simple enough. A husband named David, yeah, that's me, married to a woman named Catherine for 7 years. We had our ups and downs, same as any couple, but I thought we were mostly good. We bought this three-bedroom starter home a few years ago. Not the prettiest thing on the block, but it had good bones, and I figured I could remodel it little by little. You see, I'm in the renovation business. I fix up houses for a living, and I'd been putting my skills to work on our place whenever I had downtime. Catherine and I used to dream about how it would look after we tore out the old stuff and modernized everything. Lately, though, Catherine had been dropping hints that she wanted the kitchen done by early summer. I noticed she was acting a bit off, late nights at work, always on her phone, stepping outside to take calls. But I thought, hey, maybe the promotion at her company is stressing her out. Maybe she wants a nicer home to match her new status. I was determined to give her the best kitchen possible. That's how everything started. I was tearing up the ancient vinyl flooring and planning to install the new swanky vinyl planks that looked like hardwood. Catherine had picked a color she swore would go great with the backsplash we'd chosen. It was all very house and garden until that one fateful Saturday. I was on my back, halfway under the sink cabinet, tightening pipes and checking the water lines. The old sink had leaks, which I wanted to fix before laying new flooring. Tools were spread everywhere, my arms were covered in grime, and I was fully focused on making sure I had everything measured right. Suddenly, I heard the front door open. It was too early for Catherine to be back. She'd gone to brunch with her sister, Helen. They walked in laughing about something. I figured I'd pop out in a second and say hi, but just as I was about to speak, Helen asked in this hushed tone, "Have you told him you're moving out next month?" I swear my heart stopped. Every part of me turned to ice. I gripped the wrench so hard my knuckles turned white. I almost choked on the stale air in that cramped space. And then Catherine laughed, a sound that cut straight through me because it wasn't her usual laugh. It was cold, calculating. Her response, "No way. I need to secure my promotion first, then take half the accounts." She actually sounded proud of herself. She kept talking, explaining how she had to wait for everything to line up perfectly. Couldn't bail too soon, or she might not get the extra salary bump. But once that promotion was locked in, she'd be raking in an extra 20 grand a year. Her sister asked if she was worried I'd notice anything. Catherine's answer, "I'm too busy fiddling with my tools to see what's right in front of me." She said I was predictable and that I'd be crushed, but wouldn't fight back. I lay there, silent, hearing how she'd already secured an apartment, already moved personal items over to Helen's place, and had a separate bank account I knew nothing about. She painted me like some clueless grunt who only lives to hammer nails and stare at blueprints. 7 years. And this is how she talks about me. My head felt like it was swimming in toxic waste. I wanted to jump out, scream, smash something. But some weird survival instinct made me stay put so I could hear every detail. They drifted into the living room, still talking about timelines and how to take as much as possible from our joint accounts. They also wanted to wait until after her parents' anniversary party next month. Of course, she wouldn't want to spoil a fancy family celebration. She might come across like the bad guy, right? After a while, felt like hours, probably only 20 minutes, they left again, presumably to go shopping. I was left trembling under the sink, gripping that wrench like it was the last shred of sanity I had. Slowly, I pulled myself out and just stared at the half-demolished kitchen. We had 15 grand set aside for fertility treatments because Catherine has PCOS and we'd talked about starting a family soon. Turned out she'd been faking that entire plan, likely using my enthusiasm to squeeze more money out of me for her little nest egg. My first reflex was to storm upstairs, pack a bag, and be gone before she even got home. Another part of me wanted to confront her the moment she walked in, demand answers, scream, break the nearest piece of furniture. But I remembered her words. "He'll be crushed, but won't fight back." She pegged me for a spineless fool. I decided I'd prove her very, very wrong. I finished the kitchen flooring with a fury that day, every nail hammered in with savage precision. I refused to let her see any inkling that I knew. If she thought I was clueless, I'd remain clueless a while longer. She came home around 6, all pleasant and cheerful. "Wow, David, this looks amazing," she said, her eyes gleaming at the transformation. I just forced a smile and acted like everything was normal. We ordered Chinese takeout because the kitchen was still in disarray. Ate it on the couch while half watching Netflix. She cuddled up like it was any other Saturday night. Then she initiated sex, something that rarely happened lately, making me wonder if it was genuine or a guilt-driven performance. Every single touch felt like it scraped my skin raw, but I played along, telling myself this would all feed into my plan. Afterwards, once she fell asleep, I slipped out to the back porch with my phone. It was around 3 in the morning by then, and I texted my buddy Anthony, "Hey, big emergency, need to talk, marriage meltdown." Anthony is that friend who never sleeps, always up for random calls. Sure enough, he hit me back right away. Tomorrow, lunch, our usual place. I had a target now, collect as much evidence as possible. I went back inside, booted up Catherine's laptop. The password was the same as always, her childhood pet's name with a couple digits at the end. Nothing too incriminating in her emails, but I checked our joint accounts online and saw a series of small dollar $200, $300 transfers to her personal account every week for months. Clever enough to fly under the radar, but it added up to thousands. I snapped pictures of everything. Documentation is power. By 4 a.m., I was slumped on the couch, seething, but somehow calmer. She thought she had the perfect plan. She'd never see me coming. The next morning, I was up before Catherine, back at the renovation. She came downstairs, gave me a kiss, told me she appreciated how hard I was working. I nodded, tried not to cringe away from her touch. She left for work. The second her car was down the street, I damn near collapsed. My chest felt like it would explode from sheer anger and hurt. But I had to maintain control. I didn't want to just survive this. I wanted to win. By Sunday night, the new floor was nearly finished. Catherine raved about how skilled I was, how it would add so much value to the house. In her mind, value was something she could cash out once she split. She had no idea I was onto her. Monday arrived, and I met Anthony for lunch. He listened, barely blinking, as I laid out the bombshell. He told me, "You gotta hit back harder than she expects. She thinks you're some clueless dude who can't do more than swing a hammer. Prove her wrong." He also pointed me toward a lawyer he knew, someone with a reputation for being tough and efficient. "Don't tip your hand too early," Anthony warned while chewing his burger. "You gotta get everything in order first. The element of surprise is your ace in the hole." I nodded. He was right. That night, Catherine texted me saying she'd be late from a work dinner. I doubted it was strictly work-related, but I didn't care. Gave me more time to do recon. I opened a new individual bank account, scheduled a meeting with the divorce attorney for Wednesday, and started sorting through all our important documents. Tax returns, mortgage info, the works. While I was finishing the last section of flooring, I discovered Catherine's old journal behind the fridge. She must have stuffed it there absent-mindedly during the demolition. Some entries from the past 2 months spelled out her entire plan, how she felt trapped, how Ryan at work was so charming, how she needed a fresh start. She wrote about stalling the fertility treatments because it would complicate the exit plan. I nearly tore the pages in half. The gall of her, talking about me like I was some tool to keep around for convenience, referencing the exit plan like this was a covert ops mission. When she came home that night, I almost snapped. She smelled of wine, her lipstick was fresh, and she wore a perfume that had become her new favorite. I forced a smile, forced small talk, forced everything. She admired the kitchen, told me how proud she was of me. I said, "Just doing what I can, darling." Inside, I was picturing her conversation with Helen. "You won't fight back, you're predictable." I vowed she'd eat those words soon. Tuesday morning, she left even earlier. Some big presentation, apparently. I called in sick to my job. I spent the entire day compiling evidence and stashing anything precious out of her reach. Photographed all valuables in the house, from electronics to furniture to the antiques my grandmother left me. Then I took screenshots of every account balance. By Tuesday night, I had a crystal clear picture of our financial situation. The kitchen was nearly done. Just had to install the sink and the backsplash tile Catherine picked out, some fancy herringbone pattern. She came home giddy, going on about hosting a dinner party. The nerve. She was planning to show off the kitchen I built while simultaneously planning to ditch me, probably inviting her new flame from work. The irony made me want to spit nails. When she asked if something was wrong, I just said, "Nah, just tired. Working long hours." She nodded and changed the subject. I guess she was so caught up in her own plan she didn't see the quiet rage in my eyes. That night, I heard her whispering in the bedroom. Could have been Helen. Could have been Ryan. I didn't care. Let them whisper. Come Sunday, everything would blow up in her face. Day 1, Wednesday. I met with the divorce attorney, a no-nonsense woman named Amber. She listened to me lay out the details, flipping through copies of accounts, reading transcripts of texts I'd printed. She was surprisingly supportive, telling me that discovering this before Catherine could act was a huge advantage. In many states, if your spouse drains a joint account, you can end up scrambling to prove what they did with the money. That wasn't going to happen to me. By that afternoon, I'd quietly transferred exactly half of our joint savings, $37,000, into my new personal account. Not a penny more than half. I wanted to keep my hands clean. Meanwhile, I went home and continued installing the backsplash. Catherine got in around 7 with takeout. She mentioned her promotion might come faster than expected. My internal alarms went off. If she got that money locked in, she'd probably accelerate her plan. I texted Anthony the second she went to the bathroom. Need to finalize everything soon. He replied, tomorrow we go nuclear. And day 2. Thursday. I woke up early, took photos of everything valuable again just to ensure no changes. Catherine was in the shower, so I checked her planner. She had a meeting with her friend Janine at 1 p.m. Janine is the same person who apparently taught Helen's friend how to clean out an ex-husband. The puzzle pieces kept fitting together. I installed a monitoring app on our shared laptop. I know it's sneaky, but if she was going behind my back, I wanted to see the proof. I finished the backsplash by midday, even installed the pricey matte black cabinet handles Catherine insisted on. By 3, I was back at my computer, seeing fresh emails from her and Helen about finalizing the apartment. She had already signed the lease. Move-in date was in 4 weeks. Perfect. Let her think everything was still going her way. Anthony dropped by after work with beer and pizza. We planned the next steps in the backyard, whispering to avoid prying ears. I told him how Catherine was practically glowing lately, probably imagining her new life without me. He told me not to doubt myself. She's counting on you being predictable. You got to shatter that expectation. Catherine came home giddy, hugging me and announcing her promotion was basically a done deal. She'd get the final offer Monday or Tuesday. She winked, saying something about how life was about to get a lot easier. I just faked a grin. That night, while she slept, I found new emails detailing more about the apartment. She wrote to Helen, kitchen looks amazing. Feel a bit guilty about the timing, but oh well, you'll find some other dump to fix up. The arrogance was astounding. I reminded myself 3 more days I can hold out. Day 3, Friday. Friday was the finishing touches day, under cabinet lighting, caulking, paint touch-ups. First, though, I went to the safe where I kept my grandmother's jewelry. Stuff Catherine liked to wear on occasion. I packed it all up, drove it over to my parents' place. No way was Catherine walking away with that after her betrayal. Then I dropped by the bank to close our joint credit cards and open a new one in my name only. After that, I called the fertility clinic. We had 15 grand set aside for treatments. I told them to refund it to my personal account. Catherine was never going to have a baby with me, so I sure wasn't going to leave that money in her reach. Back home, I installed the final piece of molding around the kitchen. This was shaping up to be the most polished renovation I'd ever done, and ironically, it was for someone who'd never get to keep it. I decided to leave one little secret. Behind the sink cabinet, I tucked a Ziploc bag with a printed transcript of that conversation I'd overheard, plus copies of her lease, the financial transfers, and her shady journal entries. If she ever remodels that kitchen, she might find the time capsule of her own betrayal. Or maybe the next owner will. Either way, it felt like poetic justice. That evening, Catherine came home and shrieked with joy at the completed kitchen, snapping pictures for Instagram. She said we should get sushi to celebrate. We had dinner, then she disappeared upstairs and came back in some red lingerie I'd never seen. She cooed about christening the new kitchen. I almost lost it. Disgust twisted my stomach, but I gritted my teeth, said sure, and went through the motions. 2 more days. Just 2 more days. When she finally drifted off to sleep, I checked the laptop. More messages to Helen, basically mocking me. Kitchen's incredible. I'll enjoy it a little while before I make my move. My blood boiled, but I'd already poured so much rage into these preparations that I almost felt numb. Day 4, Saturday. Saturday morning, Catherine woke up buzzing with excitement about having friends over that night to show off the new kitchen. She left around 10 to go grocery shopping or maybe to do something else. Didn't matter. I spent the day making final preparations for my own departure. I changed my direct deposit at work so my paycheck would go to my new personal account. I made copies of key documents, downloaded important photos from our shared cloud, and had them saved on a separate drive. Anthony came by to help me move some of my personal items to his garage. I didn't take anything Catherine would notice right away, just the things I truly cared about. My old baseball card collection, a few tools I couldn't bear to lose, and some personal mementos. If she wanted to fight, I was prepared. But as Anthony kept saying, "Don't let her see you tip your hand." By 6, guests started rolling in. Helen arrived first, wearing this smug look. She gave me a hug that felt like a weird attempt at sympathy, but it made my skin crawl. More people arrived, colleagues of Catherine's, some old college friends of mine. I found myself playing the gracious host, grilling steaks, pouring drinks, all while Catherine fluttered around, bragging about how we had completely transformed the kitchen. During dinner, the conversation drifted to future plans. One couple mentioned wanting kids. Catherine, without skipping a beat, launched into how we were considering fertility treatments. I nearly spat out my beer. She had the nerve to talk about kids she had no intention of having with me, in front of our friends. Helen shot me this glance like she was worried I'd blow up. But I played along, forcing a chuckle while my insides burned with resentment. Eventually, the party ended. People trickled out and Catherine was all smiles, telling me what a great success it was. I nodded, thinking, enjoy your victory lap because tomorrow morning I'm demolishing everything you think you know. Day 5, Sunday, demolition day. Morning. Rain pelted the windows. Thunder growled in the distance. Perfect stage lighting for the final act. I got up early, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen island, just staring at the place I'd painstakingly renovated. Everything looked so fresh and pristine, a testament to my skill. Catherine was still asleep. I used my phone to double-check the final details. The lawyer had the documents ready. My new accounts were funded and secure. My valuables were safe at Anthony's or at my parents' house. Catherine came downstairs around 9. She yawned, poured herself coffee, asked if there was enough for her parents, who were due to arrive around noon. She was hosting them for lunch, wanting to show off the new kitchen. How poetic that she'd see it all crumble on the same day. Late morning. Around 11, I quietly set my phone on the windowsill, angled so it could record what was about to happen. Not for a lawsuit or anything, just for my own record. Catherine was too busy slicing vegetables to notice. She prided herself on her mother's lasagna recipe, even though it never tasted as good as Diane's original. At 12:15, the doorbell rang. Tom and Diane came in, a bit wet from the rain, but smiling. Diane offered me a gentle hug, handed Catherine a bouquet of lilies for the table. Tom commented on how nice the new exterior paint job looked. Catherine beamed, offering them a grand tour of the kitchen. She rattled off details about the countertops, the backsplash, the flooring, like she was the star of her own home improvement show. They all sat down at the dining table. Catherine served lasagna, bread rolls, salad. Typical family meal vibe. Tom asked Catherine about her promotion, and she lit up. I watched the clock tick, counting down the seconds until I dropped the nuke on them. Finally, Catherine said how this new position would bring in more money, how that would help with our future. She even squeezed my hand for show. Her father raised his glass of red wine in a toast. They all clinked glasses. That was my cue. I set my fork down. I have an announcement too, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Catherine turned to me with a slight frown, clearly annoyed at losing the spotlight. I found something interesting under the sink last weekend while doing the renovation. Her expression flickered. What do you mean? I simply pulled out my phone, tapped the screen, and set it on the table. I'd trimmed down the recording to the most damning 30 seconds. Helen's voice came through loud and clear. Have you told him you're moving out next month? Then Catherine's response. No way. I need to secure my promotion first, then take half the accounts. It was surreal to watch Catherine's parents go stone still, forks halfway to their mouths. The room was so quiet, the rain against the window sounded deafening. When the audio ended, Catherine's mother just stared at her daughter, tears already forming in her eyes. Tom put his glass down carefully. Catherine, he said, voice trembling with shock. What is this? Catherine's face warped through confusion, horror, and then fury. How dare you record me, David? That's illegal. You're taking things out of context. She ranted, spewing every insult she could muster. Calling me manipulative, I sat back, arms crossed, letting her dig her own grave. Diane whispered, Is it true? Are you really moving out next month? You have an apartment? Catherine's fury aimed at me, then at her mother. She started sobbing the kind of tears you know are mostly for show. She claimed I was the awful husband, that I neglected her, was emotionally distant, that I never supported her dreams. I let her run out of steam. Then I calmly placed a folder on the table. Inside were screenshots of her apartment lease, her bank transfers, her texts with Helen, and all the evidence of her plan. Tom opened it, flipping through page after page. His face went ashen. Diane gasped, holding a trembling hand to her mouth. Catherine tried a new angle. She said I must be doing this because I was cheating. She accused me of some hidden mistress. I chuckled darkly, scrolled my phone to show her the text she sent to some Ryan from work. Dozens of flirty, borderline explicit messages. Her father, still an old-school moral guy, stood up. "We need to leave. We need to process this," he said, shaking his head in disbelief. "Catherine, I don't even recognize you right now." Diane had tears running down her cheeks. She touched my shoulder as if to say sorry, then glared at Catherine with a look of betrayal. But the moment they stood, Catherine lost it. She stood up, shrieking, "No, you can't just walk away from me like I'm the villain here." She pointed at me. "He's the one who's been lying, snooping, recording me like some psycho." Diane tried to approach Catherine gently. "Honey, let's talk it out another time. This is too much," she murmured. But Catherine was too far gone, and that's when the dynamic shifted. Suddenly, Tom turned on me, too, like fatherly protective instincts flared in the weirdest way. He accused me of blindsiding them, humiliating Catherine in front of the family. "You could have come to us privately," he snarled. I saw Catherine's eyes dart between me and her parents, probably spotting an opportunity to spin the blame my way. She started spouting nonsense about how I trapped her. "He's controlling. He's always rummaging around. He's the one who forced me to share accounts." This is the moment the entire afternoon went from shocking to downright insane. Diane's face hardened. She slapped the table with her palm. "You set this whole scene up, David, didn't you?" Her voice was shaky. "You could have told us privately, but no, you had to humiliate my daughter." Let me tell you, I'd been calm, but I felt something snap. I glared at Diane. "Your little girl was planning to rob me blind and vanish. She's screwing some guy at work. You want me to just hold her hand and whisper sweet nothings about it?" Diane's face turned bright red. "Don't you talk to me like that, you lying snake!" And that's when she swung her handbag straight at me. She actually hit me in the shoulder with that damn thing. She had a big leather purse, probably loaded with a phone, wallet, maybe a brick for all I know, because it hurt more than you'd expect. The impact made me stumble back, and I swear to God, in that split second, I nearly lost it. My instincts had me raising my arm. For a fraction of a moment, I pictured smacking her across the face, sending that bag flying. I forced myself to freeze. My hands clenched so hard they shook. For an instant, I saw Catherine's horrified expression, and I realized if I actually lashed out physically, it would end with me in handcuffs. I took a sharp breath, forced myself to stand still. Tom snapped, "You lay a finger on my wife, you'll be sorry." He came around the table, fists bunched. I stared them both down, realizing I'd come way too far to let them or Catherine turn the tables on me. Everything I'd planned would go up in flames if I lost control. So I took a step back, exhaled, and said quietly, "You all need to get out now." Catherine started screeching that this was her house. Diane was waving that damn handbag ready for another swing. Tom looked like he wanted to punch me. The energy in the room felt like a live wire. So I made a choice, one I probably wouldn't recommend to anyone. I marched to the bedroom closet, yanked out the small safe, and opened it. Inside lay my Magnum, a big .357 revolver that I kept legally for home protection. I pulled it out, not bothering to aim at them, but letting them see it, letting them see my eyes narrow. I said, "Get out." Time seemed to freeze. The tension was thick enough to swallow. I pointed the Magnum at the floor, finger off the trigger, but intentionally menacing. My voice dropped low, and yeah, I'm not proud, but I used the nastiest tone I could muster. "If you people don't clear out of here in about 5 seconds, I'm gonna turn you into a sieve. You get me?" The color drained from Tom's face, and Diane stopped waving her purse. Catherine's eyes went huge with panic. "David, you're insane!" she shrieked. "That's right," I growled. "So if you don't want me to show you just how insane, you best get out of my house." Tom grabbed Diane's arm, practically dragging her towards the door. Catherine just kept repeating, "You can't do this. I'll call the cops. Her voice trailed off as she realized I was dead serious. In less than 10 seconds, they were hurrying through the front door, Diane sobbing, Catherine ranting at me from the threshold. "This isn't over, you bastard!" I slammed the door in her face, locked it, and heard them fumbling outside. Then they were gone. Rain hammered the roof, thunder boomed, and I stood there, Magnum in my hand, heart pounding like a drum. I let out a shaky breath, realizing how close I'd come to losing it entirely. One more second, and I might have done something truly irreversible. I knew Catherine would call the cops or some lawyer. Maybe she'd spin a story about how I threatened them with a magnum, which, yeah, I did. But I was still the legal owner of the house. It was in my name, and I had evidence of her scheme. Even if this got messy, I had no illusions that I was squeaky clean. I brandished a weapon, after all. But I also knew that in my state, as the homeowner, I had some ground to stand on when telling intruders to leave. I spent the rest of that Sunday afternoon packing up what remained of my essentials. My phone was buzzing like crazy. Calls from unknown numbers, texts from Catherine's sister, even a couple from Catherine's phone. I ignored them all, except I read a few of her messages. The tone went from anger to panic to desperation. She threatened me, saying she'd ruin my reputation, that no one would ever hire me again. Then she asked me to please reconsider, that maybe we could talk. In the morning, I'd be at the lawyer's office to finalize the divorce paperwork. I already had half of our joint savings. I had the fertility money. The rest of the accounts were effectively frozen. Let Catherine have her meltdown. I was done. By the time I loaded up my truck, the storm had eased to a faint drizzle. I took one last look at the kitchen. My finest work yet. The brand new backsplash sparkled under the overhead lights, the fancy sink, the freshly laid flooring, all shining like a show home. I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction that Catherine and her family wouldn't get to enjoy it for long. Before I left, I remembered the little time capsule Ziploc bag behind the sink cabinet. With any luck, whoever tries to remodel this place next will discover that stash and learn exactly what happened here. That, or Catherine would tear the house apart looking for it. Let her wonder. I found a little apartment not too far from my job. The day after that insane Sunday, I went straight to the lawyer. She was shocked by the final confrontation story. I'm not proud of my method, but it ended the conflict on my terms. Catherine's attempts to paint me as offensive or controlling were mostly overshadowed by the mountain of evidence of her financial scheming. Even so, I knew I walked a fine legal line with that magnum, but I had no regrets. That witch showed up at my buddy Anthony's place once, banging on the door. He told her to leave or he'd call the cops. She threatened to reveal everything, but he just shrugged and said, "Lady, we already know everything." I drove by the old house a couple of days ago. There's a for sale sign out front. Maybe Catherine can't stand living in the place that reminds her of her grand plan going up in smoke. Or maybe she's broke now that she can't drain my accounts. Either way, it looks like she's done with it. Maybe the next owners will enjoy the new kitchen I built. Maybe they'll eventually find that hidden bag behind the sink.